maybe a little bit of mic troubles on Hefe's side today. Or is that just me?
No.
No, I'm hearing it too. Yeah, just a little chopping in and out there, Hefe.
Oh, is it? Interesting. Okay, let me just switch up my mic. It's probably my mic, honestly.
Guess we picked a good day for a ride along.
Is it really that choppy? Oh, dang. Okay.
Yeah, quite literally.
Okay, that's 1 second here. It's probably my VPN.
Appreciate these 24 years waking up. Early for me at least, and late for some of y'all. Right, deb smack in the middle of the afternoon for others. So appreciate everyone prioritizing. That's cool.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Endorsed action by the DAO in terms of construction, so that did not reach quorum. And so that is going to be part of today's discussion a little bit later on, as we will be joined by some of the Aavegotchi team members. So that can actually just skip us and save the first 15 minutes here.
Yeah, we can jump ahead.
Mind or Dan that we need to expand on in that regard?
For proposals, no, you summed it up there. For proposals, I just have a little laundry list of items that I think we should kind of quickly run through. I don't think it'll take 15 minutes or 20 minutes, but we should definitely run through this list and just kind of touch on these little items here. So the first one I have is review and update DAO proposal process. And so kind of DAO proposals in the last month have kind of been I don't know, non-traditional, I guess you could say. But there's a process to this, and there are people that have joined the DAO just recently, and I just like to make sure that we're all on the same page with putting these together. So, before we go to any kind of formal process, there's always a discussion, right? There's always a forum discussion. We do it is a reasonable expectation that if you're going to be asking for money from the DAO or any sort of proposal that involves funding, that you should be coming up here to at least present, or at least give me materials that I can present for the meeting, so we can get it out there on the live stream, get the idea out there, get people thinking about it. We don't always have involvement from all our asset holders, and so just trying to get awareness out there. Of course, we have feedback and iteration, and then we go to our signal proposal. There's always a little bit of a review if you have to change anything, and then we go to core. So not really a whole lot changed, but I just wanted to really touch on the discussion and presentation aspects of before you actually
Let's clarify one thing. Let's clarify one thing on the discussion. So where are the appropriate locations for community members to avenues that we can pursue to better meet our holders? Is it just a general lack of apathy on their side that's going to be hard for us to overcome? I'm wondering what people are thinking in that regard. Maybe this is a use case for ThriveCoin to help us drive some more useful engagement.
Yeah, totally. I could see that as an avenue for that. So just wanted to touch on that point there. We should be thinking about that. Anata NFTs. This is something you brought up the other day that I was like, we need to definitely figure this out because we spent all this money on these NFTs, and I don't know if we're really using them. So, do we know anything more
Mostly
about the
it's
Anata
on the
NFTs?
community.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just followed up on Moon. So Moon, inside the Anata thread, here inside of our Discord server, Moon has indeed pinned a post that has a link to the Google Drive where the 10 Anata, I guess SVGs maybe they are, or PNGs. It's some kind of image file. And you can go in there and see the Anatas that we currently have access to. And then there's some reference to a couple of YouTube tutorials on how people engage it. And he's got some language in there referring. We had Hero step in as well and give us some language about how the team is working currently on gotchifying those 10 Anatas. This is all on their side, kind of just in their silo, so I'm not positive on what that even means or what their artistic outcome goals are. It really seems like it's kind of just Moon managing this project, so I just wanted to make sure that those of us that are curious or interested at either using one of these things or at least just keeping up with what's going on with this funded proposal, where is that all happening? And so the most relevant action is currently still happening inside that Anata DAO thread, and that's where Moon currently has the files pinned. I haven't been able to cross all the way through to B1 yet, but it seems like the instructions are in there potentially. So just looking for friends that maybe have already done it and know that it's awesome and know how to use it to explain it to others. Otherwise, I'd like to challenge the community for one of us, and I'm one of them, to try to figure out how these things work.
Yeah, well said. Also, like you said, reach out to Moon if you're not really quite sure, because it seems like he's the guy to go to for this. All right, so that's Anata NFTs. DAO meeting host rotations you're witnessing right now, friends. We got Mike Callum on stage here. He's just someone I invited, obviously a friend, but this is not exclusive opportunity. I'd like to open this up to the whole DAO. Anybody who feels like they'd like to come up here and kind of co-host the meeting. Eventually, we'll have a rotation of just hosts, 4 or 5 hosts, maybe even more, that are interested. They'll be able to come up here and be eligible for some compensation. Like, I feel like this is a position that can be shared by multiple people. We have many competent individuals in the DAO. And so if you are interested in any capacity of doing this, whether it's just doing the schedule or taking notes or actually hosting the live meeting, reach out to me. I'd be happy to kind of give you the opportunity, and even, there's opportunity to get compensated for that too. So, yeah, please reach out. We want to eventually get this as part of ThriveCoin. I've talked to ThriveCoin and their kind of idea behind this. They're all for this. But I think it's something we'll be implementing through ThriveCoin for their second half. So not this first 3 months that we're going to be doing the trial, but the second 3 months of the trial, we will be implementing automated rewards for DAO hosts. So that's something we're working towards. This is a gradual process to work towards that.
And just to re-clarify here, as the community position of the advisory board, there's no rewards that I'd be eligible to claim myself. I'm kind of just using all of these opportunities to personally experience the effort and the just the requirements of all these positions, so that way I can best recognize and acknowledge the effort that y'all are putting in when it's y'all stepping up to these positions and doing these things and helping the DAO be better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Aavegotchi DAO Spotify channel, this kind of ties in with it. We were getting the RSS feeds uploaded for a while through the DAO media team, but that's no longer a thing. So just to ensure the continuity of the DAO RSS feed for Spotify recordings, If someone would be interested in doing that, I would be, maybe we can set up a bounty or something just to keep the continuity of that
And
going.
so the big thing there, and you and I already chatted about this too. So the big thing there is the Aavegotchi DAO now has its official YouTube channel, and that's a good avenue to obviously host this content. And so the next question is, does it have a dedicated Spotify channel? If it doesn't, then we need to spin one up so that way friends can help with this contribution effort. But I'm happy to help with that first wave of getting the nice thing is it's pretty straightforward because you'll literally just take the video files that are already being done, split the video from the audio tracks, and just isolate the audio tracks and move on with life. So
That's
it's
right.
not another dedicated production effort. It doesn't need to be captured in a separate way. You can use the original source file of the video as the audio source. So it just takes a little bit of effort and commitment to the consistency. So step one is just for us to get an activated DAO channel on Spotify. So I think maybe Hefe, you can help facilitate that. And once that's up and live, then it should be pretty straightforward to get friends to help with this relatively light lift.
Yeah, use Anchor, like No Future said. Exactly.
Spotify just bought Anchor, so kind of all in one. So yeah, it'll be easy.
Cool. I'm gonna, yeah, ThriveCoin next steps. Program's officially launching. If Sened or Thrive Giraffe would like to come up and quickly just maybe take 5 minutes or so to touch on what the next steps for ThriveCoin look like. If people haven't already heard or are aware, the advisory board is now in place. Mike Callum, you can also go ahead and touch on that. I'm gonna actually jump off Discord and jump back in here and see if I can fix this audio issue that some of the friends are
Right
noticing.
on.
Mm-hmm.
Phase, I'm wondering too, is anyone spot check today's live stream on the YouTube channel? Is today also getting the echo on Hefe's feed? Yeah, no Futuristics doing this a second record, so his will be clean, I'm expecting, but I'm wondering if Hefe still has that embedded delay from that we were experiencing last time as well.
It's not really a delay. It's just kind of like it's the mic kind of, I don't know, shorting out intermittently.
I'm hearing that part right now, but last week that people were watching the recording and saying there's an echo in the actual audio.
Yeah, last week
Right.
I actually had I had two audio sources going at the same time. So I had the Restream audio source and then this one. So double audio last week, but that should be fixed this week. I have that turned off. So I'm gonna jump off. I'll be back.
Yeah, get out of here.
All right.
All right, no worries. Mystery member who's slipping my mind right now. So someone will fill that in for us. But our next steps are to meet this Tuesday, and this Tuesday will be our recurring meeting. Time slot may change slightly, but for now we're settled on that. And we got a dedicated channel here in the Aavegotchi Discord server where we'll be meeting and having those chats. And so the first one is really just kind of the initial hangout for the crew and figuring out our next steps in terms of overall demands for intel and information gathering and first steps. But we have the ambition for ThriveCoin to go live June 1st within our community. So all things indicate that we're still on track for that, and no real hurdles or blockers in the way, just moving forward as necessary.
Test. How do I sound?
Same.
Man, you sound
Same?
sound about the same. It really sounds like you got a bad connection or something somewhere.
I don't know. I think it's what hardcore is saying is the codec, but I don't know really why it's doing that. I had some switches here. I flipped back to where they're supposed to be. So
VPN still
Yeah.
on?
no, VPN's turned off, man. I have no idea. It's a mystery this morning, but I'm glad you're here. So
Yeah, that one's a weird one.
yeah.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so that gets us through ThriveCoin. That gets us through your laundry list there. Is there anything else that you needed to touch on there in general?
No. We can move through. Yeah, we got. If Senate has his hand up, if he wants to talk about the next step, he can. But
So yeah, the only thing here is I don't have the powers that be yet on that, so that's up to you all for managing audience.
I don't see the invite, the request.
Oh goodness. Discord. Thrax is on top of it, and he's trying, and it sounds like it's bugging up. So, Cindy, we roll back around to that if we need to in a second. Yeah, get yourself sorted out there. Let's not just kill time, hang out here. Wait, no, maybe we'll roll back around to that slot for you there, Cindy, towards the end. Let's see if we get lucky. Is Awkward in here today? Let's see if we can get Awkward up on stage.
Yeah,
we can go in here. It's phase.
I see Awkward here, so we're gonna put right into a presentation here by Awkward.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're coming through clear.
5.
Okay, great. I am looking for the option to share my screen. Of course, it's fucking... Oh my god. It's somehow blocked out again, and I took the precautions this morning to go in and change my settings, so I don't know why it won't let me share my screen. But hey guys, what's up? So, real fast, just an update on the pipeline. I'm not going to talk about it too much anymore today, but I just uploaded an image that I talked to Bard, or whatever, about how you would go ahead setting up a pipeline to make POAPs. And yes, I'm going to pronounce them that way because saying Pope is just weird. But they basically give a full 5-point step-by-step process on how to actually do this. So I'm going to go ahead with the proposal, talk about it more next week, but the idea is that we'll take those AI POAPs and that we get from the community and use those to train an AI pipeline to auto-produce our own later down the road. Make sense to you guys?
Your general concept makes sense to me. The nuts and the bolts of it, I'm trusting your enthusiasm and commitment. Quite honestly, I'm kind of just observing you from the outside.
Excellent. Okay, great. So I am uploading my POAP talk just like I did last week or 2 weeks ago or whatever, and it is about 30% right now. If someone would mind just kind of throwing that up on their screen to share for everyone as I go through it, we'll just do it that way. But while it's uploading, I'm going to just kind of jump into it just to kind of save us a little bit of time. The approach I wanted to take to illustrating my points was I wanted to make a mock presentation as if I was in charge of running NFT Miami next year. I feel like doing this mock thing and making a model for you guys is probably the best way to illustrate my points. And this file is about 2/3 of the way uploaded now. So the talk is called Creating and Sustaining an In-Real-Life Presence for the Aavegotchi DAO Through Brand Marketing. We're going to spend 4 minutes talking about how I would operate a conference, 8 minutes talking about the mystery box and production margins, and then talk about in real life and event planning and monetization. And then I have some price breakdowns and how we would essentially do all of this. The PDF is up now in the channel. If someone wouldn't mind sharing that, or you guys could just follow along.
I'll grab it for us.
I'm moving on to number 2. Now, a lot of this I'm going to breeze past. This is really just a reference. A lot of this is a reference sheet for you guys. If you decide, hey, I like what Awkward's talking about, whether you want to utilize it for the DAO or not, you now have a reference sheet of how you could organize all of this stuff. And what I would do is I would have clear visions of labor where, yes, it sucks. You might get stuck in a role, and that's your role for the entire conference, but it's something you can take and make your own, and it doesn't have to be the same person for every conference. My idea is that you think about things like NFT Miami, NFT New York, or places where we have people in place. And so if we can find community on these roles at the conferences in the towns that they already live in, we're going to save money on travel expenses. In my mind, volunteers are people that also already live in the area, and maybe they would attend the conference anyways, but $600 for a ticket is a very big ask. So we say, hey, if you volunteer 6 hours a day, we will pay your way into a conference. 6 hours times 4 days is 24 hours times $22 comes out to $528. They're making a deal on the actual admission for the conference, and that's how we would justify that. I'm moving on to the mock schedule. You can see that the way I've scheduled labor on schedule, which is slide number 4, is it's custom tailored around the events that we plan for ourselves. And we plan those events in a way we're not overlapping, we're not ourselves too thin. Everyone is spaced out and paced out enough that no one's getting burnt out. Everyone has a little bit of free time throughout their day in the conference, and it's a very staggered schedule. So it's not insanely intense for one person. They always have some help. There's always at least one volunteer member of the group. And then we go down to roles. And so the manager is actually the back-end person. They are the person that would run the booth. They are the person that would schedule the events, schedule the labor. They'd handle the funds, the petty cash, all the money, and they'd essentially be the brains behind the operation. Our event liaison is going to be a very knowledgeable, charismatic person that can talk about the DAO with superior knowledge. And they would be the person to host events. They would be the person to talk at panels. And media ops would work with that person. So they are more later in the day, typically, with the schedules. Volunteers, that's there. But the key takeaways are the more organized you can be, the more you will reduce the labor burden on everyone. Like I heard, horror stories about Aavegotchi DAO, ETH Denver, like people working super long hours. If I was managing it, if it was my call, that would never happen. I don't want people to get burnt out to a scenario they don't want to try to do something again. But know everything. One of the most important things is knowing where your food's going to come from. And I'll use an anecdote like this. You're at a conference, it's noon, and you send your volunteer out to get food for the crew. And they walk to the first place they can find. There's a line of people, because everyone's getting lunch, and there's only X number of food places around. So they're in a line of 20 people, takes them 20 minutes to get through the line, takes another 20 minutes to get the food, takes another 10 minutes to walk, and suddenly you've lost a volunteer for an entire hour just to get lunch. That's unacceptable. So day 0, planning your route. You know where your food's coming from. You find the cheap food, so you're not paying $30 for every single person because we have a budget, Anyway, so let's move on to the fun stuff. Slide 6 is where we get into the mystery boxes to pay for everything. And there are cost breakdowns on here to show you guys that we can make these mystery boxes for about $14 to $15 a piece, not including labor. Like people would be getting paid out of already being at the event to put these things together. The value in these boxes comes out to about $100, like, based on what your perception of value is. And a lot of this can be self-sourced. The candies, I found a lot of little ghost candies that are absolutely hilarious, and they're cheap. And that's just a thing you can throw in as filler. There is actually a board game called DAO Board Game. It was invented in 2012. And I found a company in China that will manufacture these for us for about $2 to $3 a piece. So that's something else you could do. You go on to the next slide, slide number 7, and I have even more examples of things that you could do. You can make puzzles for extremely cheap, like less than $2 a puzzle box. So you can make puzzles. You could have color-changing cups. 3D figurines are extremely cheap to make, and so are pens. And all of the stuff is ideas that could go into products that you sell in real life at a conference. Now, when it comes to t-shirts, you're gonna want to, like, when we're doing this stuff, you want to buy stuff in bulk. You want to hit price points, and you want to think about shipping and all that kind of stuff. So on page 8, we've got the t-shirts. I found a company that will sell you t-shirts for 54 cents a piece, which is extremely cheap. And if you buy 1,000 t-shirts at once, that's only $540. You can do whatever you want with those t-shirts. You can silk screen them, you can sublimation. Like, we could have our own DIY t-shirt factories on the off season, and then bring those t-shirts to sell at conferences on the on season. But you have to be smart about it, because shipping is going to take time. If you go with the lowest shipping option, you want to be like razor accurate on what your process is going to be. Is silkscreen is going to be quite a setup. Sublimation, I would argue, might not be as messy.
Awkward, you're on a roll, and I want to just pause you for just a moment. Some of the friends in the chat, do you have like a fan or something nearby the mic? You're getting kind of a really consistent, recurring clicking that's happening.
I'm pacing the room on my head. so let me take a seat real fast. But thank you. But yeah,
Sounds
so
like a typewriter almost.
a really great antidote I have for making t-shirts is I wanted to make t-shirts for my company one year, and I went to a t-shirt place, and they were like, "Oh, it's $11 a shirt, silk screened," and I was like, "I can't afford that. That's way too much money." I said, "How much are you guys charging me for the shirts?" And they're like, "Oh, we're charging you like $7 a shirt." And I'm like, "Okay, if I can find my own shirts, will you guys do the silk screen at cost?" And they were like, "Yeah." So I found a local vendor. I went and I bought t-shirts for $1.36 a piece versus the $7 they wanted to charge me. I took those t-shirts to the silkscreen place, silk screened each one for about $4 to $5 a piece. So I went from spending potentially $11 on a shirt to spending $5 or $6 on a shirt. So
And I want to give a reference anecdote too, because GMI explored some physical merch routes, and we've got wrecked compared to these routes, because these prices I'm finding quite honestly hard to believe for sourcing, because nowhere near what we were able to find for like retail outlet opportunities just with the internet. So these are very intriguing to me.
Absolutely. Well, about half of this stuff I'm finding it can be sourced from China. And then some of this stuff is based in the US, which is why my price estimates do not include shipping, because we are such a widely distributed group that I feel if we were ordering anything stateside, you might have some boots on the ground that can pick this up for us and save us shipping costs. Another product idea, if we go down to slide 9, I'm sorry, is a proof of concept for a open source hardware wallet. It can be done because I have Monero's open source hardware wallet right next to it. I actually own this. You can store private keys on it. You can do transactions. And my iteration would, add a screen and a USB-C to it. But this is all very doable stuff. And I'm just trying to show you it can happen. Whatever you like, the more time, thought process you put into it, the less money it will cost you. But this price point on this proof of concept was priced at doing 1,000 units. And that's how it's able to be done so cheap, is when you take advantage of price breaks, you can save like 70% of what you want to order, which is why you buy 1,000 t-shirts up front, because you can use those 1,000 t-shirts for 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 events before you run out. But then you need storage somewhere, which is another aspect of it. If we're doing an event at NFTC Miami or NFTC New York or something, or NFT New York, and we have people in town that can store our goods and service, or store our products for us around. If they have like closet space or something, then it really reduces our shipping costs when it comes time to actually put this into work. Now, if we move on to slide 10, I show you a basis of what it means when I say you want to figure out your time and shipping ahead of time. You can save a lot of money making the longest or the cheapest shipping rate, but it's gonna quadruple time it takes to get to you. So the more you plan stuff out in advance, the more you'll benefit all around, which is why I'm talking about NFT Miami 2024 right now. It's a year away. Anyways, so loot boxes are one way we can make money. VIP parties are the next. Slide 11. The Monero people throw a party every year at DEF CON in Las Vegas. It's amazing. The QueerCon people rent out an entire pool. They shut down a pool and they reserve it for a party. The DC 801 party is a party in a hotel penthouse. Like, they rent a penthouse and throw a party. The way they make money off of these is, I just want to say that when you're in Vegas drinking, you're going to spend $20 a drink. It adds up and it gets very expensive. And it also comes out of your pocket. So these guys have basically devised a way to drink for free. And they do it with VIP parties. And what they do is buy a VIP party badge. The organization that they buy it from is a 501c3. So it's a charitable donation, and they use it as a tax write-off. That badge that they've purchased and they use as a tax write-off is basically a pass to free alcohol at parties. So you make a charitable donation, you get a pass, and you can drink for free basically the entire weekend, is how that works. So you get creative, and you can, people learn about, people find out, oh crap, I can do a charitable donation, then have a license to drink for free all weekend. They will 100% do that. So moving down to page 12, you talk about how all the labor works. Having local people, so we're not paying so much for travel expenses. That way everyone, people regionally get a chance to run and work at these conferences. It's not always the same person, perhaps. If we made our own media package and insured it, then we would not have to rent media equipment every time we go to town. I talked about storage, volunteers, ideally be locals. Now, when it comes to media, and I talk about travel reimbursement for no futuristic, it's partially availability and partially regionally based, because let's say that NFT Miami or something's coming up, no futuristic has a wedding to go to, like his best friend's getting married or something. Like, you want to have other people that could possibly step into that role. If no one's available, if we all agree that no futuristic's the best person to do this, and it lines up with the schedule, yeah, let's pay for his travel. No big deal. I talked about knowing where your food and coffee's coming from. Talked about volunteers. Talked about the hotel. Now, I showed you guys images of penthouse parties being thrown in hotels. That can absolutely happen, depending on the hotel. I've done this with hotels a lot of times, and sometimes a hotel will have a rider that if you are doing an event there, that they either have to be have first right of refusal to cater the event and have people pay alcohol through the hotel, or they might have a fire marshal is making sure that occupancy is up to par, that people aren't breaking the rules and the laws and all that kind of stuff. Talked about 501c3, talked about insurance, like insuring a media kit. I have like 10 years of film school under my belt. I have tons of equipment I'm not using. I would be more than happy to loan it to the Aavegotchi DAO for media purposes, providing it was insured. And then how do we take these products and how do we get the most profit out of them? I talked about hitting price breaks, where you buy quantity that makes sense for the price point that you want, not the other way around. We're not we're not sitting around and doing 100 runs of everything for each conference because it's too expensive than to sit around and do 3 or 4 or 500 of something. I talked about ground economy and shipping. I think someone said something about cargo rates. Quite frankly, I wouldn't want to think about shipping until we knew exactly what we were doing and where stuff was coming from. Can things be DIY'd? That that basically falls into the t-shirt category where we make our own t-shirts, and it's so cheap that we can turn a pretty decent profit on that. And it's simple. If you're making it at scale, every single item that you add to that is gonna exponentially increase that price.
I just wanted to quickly kind of summarize up till now what you've covered here. And there's two parts. There was the POAP aspect, which was what you've covered before, and now what we're talking about here is Aavegotchi DAO, organizing and hosting events, which could be, in my opinion, the most effective way and the most cost-effective way we could have IRL presence, by finding events that are very in line with what Aavegotchi DAO needs and going to these events. And so you've described a process for organizing the event by finding the people to get involved. You've described a process for fundraising to kind of have this circular so that we're not relying on the DAO so much for funding these events. And of course, if the DAO wants to help, they can too. But primarily, what you're kind of getting at here is to make this more of a self-sustaining thing that's actually able to, keep itself going, essentially. And then you've provided a framework for managing and hosting these sorts of venues. So
and
this is great.
There's still more to go. So I've done a lot of research, and I actually have tracked down a handful of places next to the conference center in Miami that could actually host us. So if we move on to page 13, I've got the Lab Miami, which is literally an event space, and they have 4 different rooms that you can rent out. Quite frankly, I think the Idea Garden is an excellent option. But I'm still waiting to hear back on the price points for all of these places from them. But that is less than half a mile from the convention center. It's a 5-6 minute walk. It's really perfect, because someone can literally stroll out of their hotel or the conference and walk straight there. You go down to Borough 79 Windward, which is page 14. It's very much the same thing. It's it's half a mile from the conference center. It does event spaces. It's actually an art gallery. And I am also waiting to hear back from the owner on what pricing would be for like an event there. Now, I threw the penthouse in, and I was the first idea I wanted to go with. It's page number 15. I don't think a penthouse is going to work because I'm pretty much 100% sure that the second that they nail down the dates, NFT Miami 2024, the organizers will take that penthouse, because it is like the only penthouse. It's the closest penthouse to the conference center. So while it's a great deal, if the hotel would let us have a get together or event at the penthouse, I don't think it'll be available. Moving on to page 16, I would put our team up at a 2-bedroom apartment less than half a mile from the conference center. It's a 5-minute walk, and you have a 2-bedroom apartment, which could sleep 3 people if put one person on the couch in the living room, about $300 a night. And then everything's super close. You're right there, and you have a place close by where you can store your stuff. You don't have people running errands. You don't have people like taking Ubers. Like, it's all very contained. On page 17, I talk about all the different scenarios and methods.
Awkward. Just real quick.
You could do. Yeah.
Just gonna interject real quick. We have probably about, I'd say probably 5 more, like solid 5 more minutes, and then we'll probably have to move on to the next
That's great. I got one more slide, and
Awesome.
then we can discuss it.
No, thank you. It's been great so far. I just wanted to let you know.
And so I have these VIP party scenarios where, you know, we have options for locations, we have options for method of identification, you know. Perhaps when you show up at this party, you have to buy a cup. And that's how we do it, because I don't want to get anyone drawn into legal situation where we are serving alcohol, where you have to ID people, where you have to have a liquor license. Like, I don't want to do that. In my mind, we sell people cups, and we have a serve yourself bar, because that's what a lot of these places in Las Vegas is, these parties in Las Vegas is do, so they don't have to get into the whole liquor license debacle. Method of delivery. How are we going to serve the alcohol? I just covered that. And then the events, like what will we actually do? We could give raffle tickets to everyone that comes through the event. Like when you buy your entry, you get 5 or 10 raffle tickets. You could have a speaker come up, talk about the contributions the DAO's made over the years, or over the past year, and what the future looks like. You could have a fake museum with plug and play pies. I already have a program we can load onto Raspberry Pis, and we can pick a wallet, and it will just auto cycle the NFTs through that wallet onto a display screen. We could have a projector, and we could have people come and do arena tournaments where they do, you know, that kind of stuff. We could bring a tattoo artist in to give people free Aavegotchi tattoos. There's a whole lot of stuff. Oh my God, I had more than 18 slides. I'm so sorry. We could stream on page 18. We could stream it in VR. This setup that I'm showing you guys, I have the setup. I could loan it to you guys. It could be part of a media package, and then people that aren't even at the conference could watch in VR. We have trophies on page 19. I made these just for shits and giggles. You could do joke trophies for people as prizes in tournaments and raffles. And then that brings us to the final page, page 20. I have, you know, the best price estimate I could possibly give you guys for everything. At the very bottom, you see the total cost to sustain the first presence, because we have to pay for the first presence at the hotel, or at the, you have to pay for the startup cost for the mystery box. You have to pay for the VIP party if you want to go that route. And that comes out to about $1,700, not including shipping costs. Which I showed you guys a whole bunch of really awesome shit. Let me see if I can do that when it comes time to get shipping, and I guarantee you will get the lowest shipping cost possibly available. On the right-hand column, you can see where we would be getting profit from. The mystery box is about $10,000. If you sell 100 of them at $100 a piece, that's $10,000. A VIP party, if you sell 100 passes to a VIP party at $50 a piece, that's $5,000. So your max profit you could make if you guys went that route would be $15,000. You see that the base cost that investment in a surplus, you'd have some money could potentially get saved to the side for something else. If you guys wanted to make NFT hardware wallets, the money could be from there.
Man, I'm a big fan of everything you're doing here, Awkward. More so just the demonstration of expertise and thought through in terms of your process is fantastic. Same thing, I was talking to Musashi here in the crowd. It's just great to see so many friends that have such
I'm not trying to shit on the ETH Denver experience at all, because I think what happened was amazing. But when y'all came back and you talked about how much work it was, I thought to myself, if this was my team, I would have never let them take on that much work. Sorry, that's what I do.
No, and that's
I
correct.
manage.
That is the right attitude, and that was our vulnerability. You know, our enthusiasm was almost our silver bullet. It definitely was almost the undoing. We were willing to say yes to anything and everything because we didn't really have the experience yet to know where to put
Yeah.
up guardrails or set up for optimized channels.
Yeah, and in my structure, you guys would have a manager on site that would be making those decisions. That you guys would control the narrative and the events, so that people have the resources and the labor they need to match what's actually happening.
Honestly, I think the number one thing that you're doing here that really intrigues me individually is just the profit route. Like the ability to self-produce some community merch and have opportunities to sell things on the table. This is something Smokescreen said halfway through Denver that was just like, obviously this is a miss, and it was completely correct.
Loosely adjacent to the Aavegotchi DAO, but it is purely a nonprofit for the purpose of sustaining our in real life things, and that's how, as a 501c3, you can take donations for a mystery box, and it's not a merch sale.
I like what I'm hearing, Awkward. I think you're going to be a big part, or at the very least, the incredible slides you put together here will be a major part planning for the next one here, and like just really appreciate you putting in the effort. You touched on some really great points regarding Eat Denver, things that went great, but more so things that we could do next time to make this an even better and more sustainable experience. So I appreciate you sharing that with us here today. Any last words for before we move on to the next speaker?
No, I would just say that I will talk about the POAP design pipeline next week with a proposal that's ready to go
Okay.
on chain. That's it. Have a
And
great day, guys.
absolutely,
Thanks, Awkward.
and feel
Awesome.
free to reach out to
Thanks,
us if
Ben.
you need help with anything there. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I just want to put one cap on the end of this too. It's important to remember, guys. That's a 20-slide presentation. This individual community members put time and effort into this thought. He's put time and effort into his presentation. He's thought this through, and he's trying to make the best use of y'all's time. So whether or not we love every single thing he's saying, or we want to do it exactly the way he's presenting, what I want to highlight is the fact that this individual is taking time out of his life to try to offer things for this community better. That's what's important.
Yep, exactly. Well, with that being said, next up we are going to be talking from Ovix. So we'll get Gary from Ovix up here, and we will get his take on everything that's happened in the last couple weeks, and have a public discussion. Maybe come up with some next steps as well. So, Gary, if you're in the audience, we'd be happy to get you up here. GM.
Hello,
Hello, Gary.
GM. Can you guys?
Yeah, you're coming through. A little bit quiet, but if you could turn it up a little bit, that might help.
Yeah, I'll try. Do you mind in the meantime also invite some of the other contributors? They're all like Pesto Poppa, D-Lock, and two more. So because yeah, it's not just gonna be who's gonna be talking and who's involved in this. If you can all guys request maybe also, and then
Yeah, they'll have to put their hand up there. I see Pesto Papa. We get
And Bunny Block.
Good morning.
Glenny, you sounded nice and good. Peso, if you give us a little bit of sound check there for us, please.
Yes. Can you all hear me?
The mic is inside of your throat. You're quite loud. Sounds good and clear, but maybe back off that volume just a touch.
Yeah.
Send some of your volume over to Gary, and I think we're balanced across the board here.
Yeah, just D-Lock is still D-Lock and
D-Lock's got to throw that hand up. There it goes. The hand just went up. We'll get him up here as well.
Aiden, who also is part of our team.
Yeah, there's Aiden's hand as well. Perfect.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, you coming through?
Yeah, you're good.
Great.
And D-Lock.
Oh, Pesto, I think if that was you, then I think you've actually gone way the other side of the spectrum. I think I just heard you kind of whisper into there.
Thank you. Should be better now, I think.
Perfect. Yeah, nailed it. Good.
Seeing D-Lock.
D-Lock might be our only one that's having a little bit of issues here. I saw the hand go up. I'm wondering if it's not pulling him right. There we go. Fresh hand. Let's see if we get him up on stage.
Yeah, I don't know. I
Only
don't see
one's giving
D-Lock
us a
coming
little
up
bit of
here.
trouble here.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's okay. We might have to continue onward right this exact minute and see if we can't still keep trying to get him pulled up and jump in the conversation halfway here. I know that D-Lock's one of the main.
Another account or through your phone. He should be able to join, but why he can't.
All right, Gary, you're the only one on stage right now. It's still just a little bit quieter than preferred. If you can literally just get closer to the mic, that's probably going to solve it. Otherwise, maybe just tweak a setting.
Okay, one sec.
That is an improvement.
Yeah, it's sounding good now.
Is that better?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Nice. Very nice. All right, so who wants to kind of take point on this, guys? We do have time slots, so I don't want to waste y'all's time at all here, and just want to make sure that we're discussing the most relevant part of it. Obviously, the big discussion in the room here is that the Aavegotchi DAO has been forwarded some funds from the Gotchi Vault that is related to the recent OVIX exploit. Our expectations are to send these funds back. What we need to hear, or are wanting to hear, kind of the action plan from the OVIX community, the OVIX team, in terms of where these funds are going and why this is the right place for them to go, and how we can feel comfortable as our community knowing that we're handing this bag off to the right place for the best benefit to the OVIX affected users.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. First of all, I'll start, and then the other contributors can or will likely join in. I think D-Lock is now also here. So yeah, first of all, thanks for having us. As you can imagine, it's been a very difficult time, given that we're also a bigger DAO native to Polygon, as I'm sure you guys are aware, with big plans, and still big plans, of course, and massive amount of partnerships, and yeah, lots of innovation that OVIX is trying to ship and build. So obviously, such a bad attack is slowing everyone down, and that's obviously not optimal. But I personally don't know many DeFi protocols that haven't gone through attacks, unfortunately, at one point in their lives, and obviously this just shows how early we are in specifically in DeFi and crypto. And yeah, we're doing our best. We have a brilliant team working nonstop to mitigate risks, mitigate attacks. But unfortunately, there's still risks out there, and there's still actors, rogue actors that see things in a different way. And there's an ongoing investigation, of course, with international law enforcement. We can't share too many details because it's ongoing for legal reasons. But yeah, other than that, our focus is now to get stolen funds back to the community and start distributing them, because there are a number of users in the hundreds that strongly depend on funds being returned. Some have put their life savings, some have put in significant amounts, and yeah, obviously we're trying everything we can to hopefully find a amicable solution to that situation. And yeah, so basically there are a few ideas that are clearly to be discussed, and we need to find a way with the community to find the best way forward. So whatever we propose or whatever is being discussed here, the community will then have their say, and those ideas will then be part of a number of options that currently are in the room and have to be voted on by the DAO and the community. So yeah, so this is where we stand. We have been talking to a number of you, some of them here, both offline, some of the people behind Gotcha Vault and Aavegotchi also in person, because we have also quite a few common friends or colleagues. So the current stage is that yeah, we wanted to reach out to you to see, okay, what's the current questions that you guys have for us specifically, either about the attack or about the rest of the plan that is being worked on together with the community whilst the investigation is ongoing, which is also extremely time consuming, as you can imagine. So yeah, that's I guess our question to you before we go into the details.
Just doing a little bit of solicitation here to the community crowd. What questions do y'all have in y'all's mind? There's not a discussion at the Aavegotchi DAO in my mind about whether the funds go back home or not. I think I'm just speaking for myself here, so I want some clarity. But in my mind, the real discussion is just where's home, and how do we know that the home that is being presented to us is indeed the right place for these funds to go, to the best benefit of the actual depositors and the actual affected Aavegotchi users, and that we don't end up potentially handing the bag to the wrong party, and then the bag disappears, and then we get looked at as the dummies that handed it over to the wrong person. No Futuristic is making another good comment here about just informing you guys on our governance. So we are a big full-blown DAO here, typically 1,000+ votes on any kind of governance action. Directors require governance action voting to take any action. We have no discretion whatsoever on how anything occurs, and so our entire community has to put a proposal first. The proposal goes up to the community, that first wave of temperature check and that first salute off on the concept, and that moves forward to a core proposition. And once that core proposition is passed, then action is taken for any regarding governance action. So funds forwarding, changes to protocols, anything. So we do have a very established DAO process. It does typically take about 3 weeks from ideation to close for that 1 week of discussion, a week of sig prop, and a week of core prop. And so there is process that does have to occur. We're not simply waiting for like warm and fuzzies right now, and then we'll just send the money to y'all today. It's just not that simple, and there is a specific procedure that has to be followed. but that's what we're in the process of doing right now. So I think as a community, we're probably less concerned about the questions of the exploit details or the who did what or responsibility of contracts or anything like that. We know that these aren't our funds to retain. I think that for us, the biggest discussion is just where do we send these funds, knowing that that is the place of the most potential integrity regarding this whole entire circumstance, because there's at least three completely separate entities involved in all of this discussion. And there's a lot of different opinions and claimed information being circulated. So I think from Aavegotchi DAO to the OVIX community, our biggest question may be, where are we sending these funds and why is that the right place to send them?
Yeah, maybe DLog can expand on where funds can be sent. I believe the funds should and could be sent to the same place where Gotchi Vault has sent them before.
Yeah,
DLog,
that's
you wanna-
correct. We have a multi-sig wallet, which is it's governed by multiple signers, and this is usually the destination or the place where reserves or extra funds are held, and this is also where we receive the excess vCoast from Gotchi Vault.
Personally, I understand that concept. Looking for community feedback here as well. If is just in general, has anybody? And I know that people like Maury and Maxi Crouton have done a really a lot of effort on their own, doing their own due diligence and researching things like this as well, and they tend to agree with that sentiment. And so I'm just kind of just the one on the mic right now, but looking for that community discussion here in the chat to know what people are looking for from the OVIX team, so that way we can move this forward. Are we as a community wanting the OVIX team to be the ones that put the proposal forward in terms of our DAO, and that way we're voting on their proposed plan of resolution? Are we wanting us to do it on our side based on information that the OVIX team provides us? And so this is me just kind of speaking to the Aavegotchi DAO right now. What are we wanting to see that'll make us feel like we can move forward? I see Ross making comments here in the chat. Ross is kind of leading the front on this here for us in our thought leadership. So he wants to know what would be the best venue for Aavegotchi to follow updates about the exploit, the investigation, etc. Having a clear and open flow of information would be helpful. Have recently published the post-mortem, and he's just wondering about where's the best place.
Okay. As I said, first of all, thank you. So regarding the exploit, as I said, there's an international law enforcement investigation, including U.S. Law enforcement and U.S. authorities. I believe Ross is a lawyer, if I recall correctly.
Correct.
Yeah, happy to have him or have our lawyers contact him if they want to discuss details about the law enforcement. Maybe there's a way for him to reach out to specifically U.S. law enforcement if the lawyers can make an intro. And yeah, to answer that question in terms of where the investigation is, because also similar to other exploits, for example, Euler DAO, certain things just cannot be shared while the investigation is ongoing. I believe those guys even stopped their chats for the time being. We didn't, or the community didn't want, decided not to go to that extreme. Also because OVIX has been in a complete different stage. OVIX is technically still in a beta stage, still in its early beginnings. There's no token yet. So also to answer the questions about the DAO, because we saw certain people saying, yeah, the DAO can't work without a token. But yeah, there will be a post from our legal counsel explaining why it is legally working. It is a legal entity incorporated, working as a DAO. But again, happy to expand also, and hopefully soon, in light of recent events, obviously this will be made more public, even though we talked before on this publicly, but I think certain people just didn't sound those
Oh, I
references.
can imagine y'all are kind of having to repeat a lot of y'all's content at this point and just explain yourselves to lots of people. So appreciate y'all taking the time to be in here. Coder Dan did tag y'all. Make sure that y'all noticed that message from Ross there. He did provide his email address, and so he's happy to receive updates there. And so that'll be your private avenue to stay in touch with Ross. And he is again is our point man there. So make sure that y'all don't miss that email. Just to recycle here on what Bearded mentioned again, because today's apparently the first time that we've asked this. So no worries. He could have led that conversation, but we'll do it here right now. And so we want to know about a action plan from the Aavegotchi team. So we are a DAO, so it'd be really fantastic if y'all are the ones that come over here and craft this proposal and have in that proposal a listed address where you want these funds forwarded from our DAO and why. It's not that y'all have to compete for our belief on it. We just want to see the effort from y'all's side of things to help resolve this issue that we've been drawn up into. And so we've already spent a lot of time as a DAO focused on this issue, and this was never on our initial roadmap or agenda, and so it's already taken a lot of mental energy from us. And so as much as y'all can do to help us move this issue forward is what we're here to help y'all with. And so our DAO procedure is maybe what we're here to make you most aware of, and to recognize the fact that there's no one holding any of the Aavegotchi community members back from crafting an action proposal and presenting it here to the Aavegotchi DAO, so that way we can show your proposal to our own community and say, here's their resolution plan, here's what they'd like us to do themselves. We can feel the most warm and fuzzy about this particular course of actions, and we can get this situation resolved and settled.
Sure. So I think there's no finite solution yet, because it's not just up to us. We have options in our minds, and I think Pastor Papa here can also, together with DLOC, maybe expand on some ideas, but ultimately it will come to the consensus of the community. Again, there have been a number of options already discussed in our DAO, or specifically the general chat on Aavegotchi Discord. But yeah, maybe Pastor Papa and DLOC, you wanna say words on that?
Yeah, I can. Obviously, as Gary just mentioned, everything has to be eventually voted upon by the community. One obvious option for returning the funds is effectively proportionally to all the users' net portfolio size on the protocol. That means total supplied minus total borrowed. Effectively, every user has some combination of collateral assets on the protocol and some distribution of loan amounts. So we would only, once the proposition would be to use only the loan amounts to effectively calculate the net portfolio size of each user. So if a user, for example, was supplying $100,000 worth of assets and borrowing $50,000 worth of assets, their net portfolio size would be $50,000. And then of that $50,000, you would look at the breakdown of the assets being used as collateral. If that user had 50%, was supplying 50% of USDT on the collateral and 25% broken down in Matic and ETH, then effectively the amount returned to that user could potentially be 50% in USDT and 25% in ETH and Matic in this example. The one complication that we have in our protocol is that the attacker didn't attack all the markets in the same exact way. Some markets were drained, some markets were completely untouched. One specific market was only partially touched. So one way to proceed here is effectively to, once you compute the net portfolio size of each year on the protocol and the breakdown of their collateral assets, you can then sum for each asset how much net portfolio is contributed by each asset across the entire protocol. And from that, you subtract the available liquidity that is left on protocol right now, which we, by the way, have published in our postmortem, the available liquidity for various assets. And then basically the recuperated funds would be distributed to each market proportionally to the whole. In other words, the difference between the amount of liquidity that would be owed to these for a specific asset, amount of available liquidity in that. That's just one example option.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I like.
There are a number of other options as well.
And
Yes.
so I like everything I'm hearing from you guys. Let's just make sure, at least here on this particular stage, we don't need to dive into the weeds explicit. I'm happy to see that y'all are doing that. That's what we want to see, and we want to see these things occurring between y'all's OV. Y'all need to get to that consensus community of what y'all want to see happen in terms of the resolution rollout. And then at that point, that's when we're going to see proposal crafting and presentation to the Aavegotchi DAO for action. Then at that point, we're going to be receiving a proposal from y'all that is well crafted and shows obvious action and routing. Once we are able to see that and we're felt comfortable with where those funds are being forwarded and that this is indeed the best action and the will of the OVIX community overall, it'll be a very smooth process, I think, for us to want to finally offload these funds and get this resolution solved on our side. So the thing I'd put to you guys is go ahead.
I'm screening the chat here for questions also here, and I see a couple from Coder Dan that might be relevant. Just want to know if the multi-sig signers, I'm assuming these funds will be going to a multi-sig, if the multi-sig signers are doxed, and specifically if there's going to be any issues in terms of nationalities, like, sending these funds to, for example, someone who lives in a blacklisted country or something like that. These are issues that we've had to butt up against in the past, and just want to make sure that there's nothing kind of we wouldn't be putting ourselves in a bad position by sending funds to, for example, a country that's been kind of blacklisted for that sort of thing.
Yeah, you can rest assured about this, right? It's the same multi-sig that admins the protocol based on
Bunny Block will
proposals.
take that question, I think. Dilo.
Yeah, maybe it will be easier. Hey, jumping quickly on that, because I mean, this is a very good question. There were like a lot of good questions regarding to the DAO. I mean, obviously, it was beta, as it was mentioned before, so the DAO was not fully formed yet. There's a lot of things that were not maybe perfect, and I mean, I've seen comments regarding to Aragon and this kind of things. If this is an issue to some people, obviously it can be improved before a so important vote. But there were votes, and there is an association, not a foundation, as someone mentioned. So there is an entity that can undergo KYC, and a lot of things can be done to help, because all of this, there is some structure, like there was some thought put into that. And it's not just a bunch of people, not just one person doing everything, but like a lot of contributors trying to make it work. It was maybe not still final stage, but there's enough information to provide any information that may reassure you. There's an entity, first of all. And if the problem for now is the governance process that's not clear enough, well, that's a fair point, but was better. So if it needs to be improved before this vote, it can be quickly fixed if necessary, just to add some layers of guarantees that may make your community feel better about it.
I think that's pretty well said there, and I think that's about as deep as the Aavegotchi DAO really needs to be on the topic. Y'all definitely have a very active discussion going on. There's a lot of community back and forth, and a lot of self-reflection and self-inspection occurring amongst y'all. What and the responsibilities of it, that's different discords, different topics. This is explicitly about what's it going to take for Aavegotchi DAO to get a vote passed to get these funds handed off. Yeah. So what we need is a safe place to send it and the reasoning behind it, and we need consensus from the OVIX community that this is indeed what the community wants us to do with their funds. And so I appreciate y'all's time. I don't think that it's something that we need to continue expanding on in a bigger way. Lots of comments here. Let's just make sure we're sweeping through. Ross is on good ground right now as well. Make sure y'all have that email down. That's going to be really the most important piece of intel that y'all are gathering from this communication right now. And then from our side of thing, it's going to be needing some kind of consensus of action plan from the OVIX community, and then we'll be able to move forward, enabling the will of y'all's community with these funds.
Yeah, I'm just scanning
Yeah, we got lots of. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think y'all are very active, and I appreciate it. That's the point of these discussions and why we're here. So yeah, just bear with us as we read through all this. Just touching on first Aavegotchi's point, he's kind of echoing the same thing. From him, also the Aavegotchi DAO should make a SIG prop with the proper address where Aavegotchi DAO should send the funds and what it'll be doing with the funds and what is the clear reasoning they own the funds. And that makes sense. That's again just looking for that very clear action plan that demonstrates a position of integrity. I see some Aavegotchi community members in here mentioning the definition of the term DAO, current status of DAO within Aavegotchi. That's going to be internal stuff. That's a discussion. We're not here to judge specifically if y'all are or aren't, or what y'all's voting mechanics are. We think we do things well here as a DAO, so definitely by all means be willing to ask questions and stuff. Happy to let y'all know how we take our business here. But by all means, that's what the community seems to be looking for the most. Let me just look here what Coder Dan had from Choin as well. Here's just like a quick question. I know that y'all can't maybe necessarily answer this to get consensus across your community, but what's the plan for the Ghost? Just from a couple of y'all, anyone willing to kind of speak to it, in y'all's mind, what happens when we hand over this bag? Is this an instant liquidation on this bag so that way y'all can get funds on hand to be able to make users whole? Is there an explicitly obvious vesting schedule in y'all's mind? Is there some kind of approach to an OTC deal at rate? What are y'all's considerations for what would happen to the Ghost once the Aavegotchi forwards that?
So with some of you, including who was it? Maxi Crouton. We had extensive preliminary talks on this. OTC deal was proposed, but it's not an interest, at least I talk in my personal capacity here, to dump or sell a token. But yeah, I'm pretty sure the Aavegotchi community is more than willing to consider a very fair proposal. If we're, if the community is being given a chance to vote on that. So other than that, I think all the other options will just make things way more complicated on both sides. So if you ask me, I think an OTC deal is concerning that even the 3 weeks are potentially gonna have impact on a number of users' lives because obviously the hack has or the attack has happened already 2 weeks ago. But yeah, we're willing to find a way to make this process hopefully work as smooth and as fast as possible from this point onwards. Pastor Papa, I don't know if you had some ideas on this as well.
Yeah, no, the OTC, it is also my personal opinion that an OTC deal would probably be best for everybody involved, including especially you guys, because we wouldn't want this to contribute undue sell side pressure on the Ghost token. Whether the OTC deal comes in the form of stable coins or potentially even the various assets that the DAO votes to provide liquidity for on the various markets, and as users get repaid, we can all this is obviously up for discussion and voting.
I think that this is probably a good pause point for it. Hefe, give me your opinion here as well. But
I think your timing's on point. Absolutely.
Yeah, obviously this is a very complex topic. And there's multiple organizations involved here. I think I'm just the one up here right now, but I'm just reading through all the comments and everything. I think the obvious attitude from the Aavegotchi DAO is there's no question in our mind about retaining these funds. That's not something that's even up for discussion. We've got many community members that wanted to forward these, or at least revert the initial forwarding of it to us immediately upon arrival. Unfortunately, with us being so committed to our procedures and our DAO structure, that's just not something that we're able to do. And so as Aavegotchi DAO project, it is unfortunate the timeline that the Aavegotchi community will have to experience in terms of us to be able to get to proposal governance that's actionable. But that is it is where we are today, unfortunately. And so the Aavegotchi DAO procedures will be held and will move forward as required. And so what we'll need now, the good news though is that you guys can pull those levers. And so what we need from the OVIX community is a reasonable action plan. We need explanation in a proposal that our community can ask questions of, interpret, and feel warm and fuzzy about, to the point where we can have quorum, pass a vote, and get these forwarded to a place of y'all's presentation. And so we don't want to have to do the due diligence of finding out where we should send it and why. We don't want to have to do the due diligence of finding out how many depositors had ghost where, and we sure as heck don't want to be doing individual reimbursements to depositors to try to make sure that we feel warm and fuzzy about where it's going. We're trying to create less work for ourselves as the DAO as potentially possible. And so the next step, I think, from here forward is the OVIX community continuing y'all's internal discussions. I've been watching and I've been observing inside the OVIX Discord, and I'm present over there and available for continued communication if the community is looking for that as well. But I think at this stage, it's probably a good pause point for the Aavegotchi DAO topic discussion. And I appreciate y'all taking your time to come on over here and kind of just experience what we're doing and where our concerns lie and what our procedure looks like and how y'all can move this forward.
Yeah, appreciate it. Would the OVIX community then preferably compose draft and then to be sent to you for review before it's being published on Snapshot, or what would you propose?
Yeah, that's a reasonable thing. Also, just utilization here of the Aavegotchi DAO Discord topics. The OVIX topic is still open, and y'all are more than welcome to continue using that thread topic. And so if the OVIX community, at whoever and whenever, wants to produce some kind of draft work or start asking questions about guidance on draft work, by all means engage us. You know, we are proud of how our DAO operates here, and so we're happy to guide y'all through our own process and make this as easy and as stress-free on y'all as possible, because I know you got a lot of pressure from a lot of different angles.
Yeah, well said. I think that's a good point there to end off there. I appreciate the OVIX team here coming here and discussing this with us today and finding a path forward. So yeah, don't want to get these over to you guys as soon as we figure things out. We can help you with the proposal process. And yeah, with that being said, I think we can probably on to our last topic today. And I'm glad
thank you all very much, the OVIX team.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having us. We're a big fan of what you guys do, especially within the Polygon ecosystem. You know, we're also very focused on that, and yeah, I hope both our communities can come back stronger than ever from this. I mean, we will for sure work very hard on doing that, and hopefully in the future both communities can continue to strive and potentially also work together on, you know, pushing the space forward. So but yeah, thanks
y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Bye bye.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right.
Thanks, community, too. Y'all, appreciate y'all's engagement, good comments. Thanks for keeping it together. I know it's a high energy topic here and lots of questions going on, and appreciate everybody paying attention.
Absolutely. See, Horrors tagged me in the chat. What's that for? I don't understand.
Y'all make sure to use that OVIX topic thread too. There is an ongoing conversation on this, and that's the right place for it, because there's lots of feelings on this, and if you want to be engaged in it, that's the right place to stay engaged with it. And it's worth being engaged. This isn't done and this isn't over, and there's lots of questions to ask and talk about, so get engaged in the right place.
Yeah, immaterial, man. I apologize. My voice is I'm glad we got my Calm up here to help me out.
Right now you sound clear. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
it's super weird. I don't know, man. Discord's just not like me right now. So what are we on to now? We're on
all
to
right.
rarity farming stuff? Are we
are
we about to trigger no future?
Yeah, I mean, we gotta figure the rarity farming thing out. This is something that I think the projected date was early June, so there are definitely things to figure out here before we launch the next rarity farming season. So far, we've already determined that the initial discussion around the forge being involved with rarity farming is not going to be a thing. they're going to be considering maybe making their own track for rewards. So we don't need to focus on that, but we do have some pressing kind of decisions to make before we kick off the next rarity farming season. There's been discussion of an opt-in option for rarity farming season to maybe be a little bit more fiscally responsible and really seeing rarity farming is about engagement. That the ones participating are engaged, and so the opt-in option is something to discuss. So I'd like to know, first of all, what do you think about implementing opt-in for this rarity farming season? And are there any new features we want to add on top of that?
You're real close to going on to text only duty thing. These friends are struggling. Y'all don't know how to read Hefe's mind yet. By this point, you can just fill in the blanks. I know that y'all understand what he wants to say, right? All right, what is opt-in is what Crypto Green's asking. So let's give a general overview for those that haven't heard this part of it yet. So what is opt-in for rarity farming? Opt-in for rarity farming is the concept that there would be some sort of feature, and this would maybe be in the UI. Where this tick occurs is beyond my scope right now. Maybe someone's got a better sense of where we specifically discussed it would be. The concept is that there would be a new gate essentially set up for rarity farming that you as a user would have to acknowledge and opt in to participating in rarity farming. And if you did not take that action to by your desire to be a part of the rarity farming by opting in, then you would not be eligible to receive the rarity farming allocated rewards. Seeing just comments here, it sounds like we've got some friends that are into it. Choinas likes the opt-in concept. He's made that clear.
So does that mean that the funds would be split between everyone that opts in, or those that are on the leaderboard but did not opt in would just be skipped, and those that would have gone to them would just be returned to the pool or not sent out at all?
Yeah, great question there. Just reading through here. So like Grim, so he's fine if the funds were just patient list at all. Like, let's meet. Does that basically mean when they're nerfing people that are AFK? What kind of runway of awareness would they have before the opt-in, before they get shut out? And that way, if they come back, 3 months, 1 to 2 quarters is very realistic for some of our AFK holders to possibly have an awareness gap, and they come back and they're already been shafted, or would there be a longer runway for that? Yeah, Choina also agrees with that, skipping 2 to 3 months, or actually that's immaterial, talking about his auto battler, little alpha there, 2 to 3 months out on that kind of thing. We wouldn't have an opt-in if people are not properly notified. That's fair, no futuristic. So what's like the awareness campaign look like? What's the notification runway look like? Yeah, exactly. Would this be similar to like the sunsetting of Friends? How long was that runway? What did we do to make people aware? What did Pixelcraft do to make people aware? What kind of runway, and do we feel like that was an effective transition into the sunsetting of Friends, or is that an example to learn from because it went poorly?
I think it's about you. Look, I mean, how do I sound right now? Do I sound good to you up here? I can do text if that's
yeah. No, you're fine.
All right, yeah. So I was gonna say, this is something we should think about because we need to be fiscally responsible with our DAO funds here, and I don't think we have any data from the last 4 rarity farming seasons of how these funds are even getting utilized. Did they just get market dumped? Are people going in and actually buying wearables with this stuff? Like, how are these rarity farming funds even being used? That data would be really helpful in making these sort of decisions. Just a thought I had just now is like, maybe that might be a necessary step if we are to implement like opt-in, is like just to know how many wallets have just gotchis with the pockets full of ghosts that have moved in a very long time. That would be really helpful to know.
this is just me thinking out loud here too. So it feels like if we go that route, then we're also like requesting a pretty heavy burden of data and metrics to create the criteria for like the justification is or who the target is. I don't know if it needs to be that deep. I think that the opt-in itself is enough to just say if you check the box that you're in, if you don't, not. And the more important discussion might be the amount of runway offered to friends and the awareness campaign ahead of that before we engage it.
And I think this conversation about opt-in started about what 3 or 4 months ago. Talking about for the next upcoming season, and that season is anticipated to be sometime in June.
It sounds unrealistic and
But I am excited about the possibilities of more active ways to do rarity farming in the future with the auto battler that community members are making and other ways. But I don't think it'll be for this season.
Just going through comments here too. So Hinka asks, what would be the benefit of the opt-in? Crypto Green essentially summed it up quite easily, is it'd be more money for the active holders. The concept here is, are we sending out a lot of rarity farms to shockingly unengaged wallets and shocking active wallets? Kind of echoing to Light Piglet's concept, I can see that he's on this particular map. Is that necessarily bad? If they're holding gotchis and they bought those gotchis, is there any actual expectation of our community that we're willing to toss those friends out of the circle just because they don't spend every Sunday with us here on these DAO calls? So is this essentially like a chop of current rarity farming eligible friends? Is this a yes and? Is this an expansion? Yeah, this is a very early raw topic, is what I can tell already. Right, is that there's not a lot of firm ideation around this. So I think step one here, at least, is to acknowledge that a June rarity farming season is going to be far too soon to even consider this to be in place, and so we can at least go ahead and let go of that part of the conversation, is what I'm feeling like I'm hearing. And so then, if that were the case, and people still want to see this happen, then what's the roadmap look like to get this mechanism in place prior to the preceding rarity farming season? Yeah, and like to Soju's point here, right? And he's Light Piglet as well. It'd be easier BRS since that's the easiest farm as an AFK. With Soju here, passive engagement shouldn't be punished, but probably not rewarded at the same level as active engagement. Let's remind friends too that we are about to see on June 1st the Thrive Coin program launch, and that whole entire mechanism is meant to find routes of engaging and rewarding active users. We may be about to implement the parallel system that allows for active engagement that's a higher quality for more engaged users, whilst not really manipulating the rarity farming structure as it exists. So time might be course of action currently, but this is a actively discussed topic, and there's lots of different opinions here. I'm not getting consensus from the community currently on what the road forward here looks like. Okay, let me just ask this then. Is there an official, where's the thread for this? Where's the active Aavegotchi DAO topic forum on this? Who's leading this conversation? Whose concept was this at first with opt-in? Like you mentioned, we've been hearing it for a while. So
well, it's
where do
not.
friends
It's
need
usually
to go
someone.
to
It's
express
usually,
these feelings.
yeah, I think DAO discussions. There's already, if I'm not mistaken, a thread. Yeah, it might be that one that Coder Dan actually has there. You know, someone every
no
three.
activity in this one. I think
Okay.
a lot of this was on the DAO forum, maybe.
Yeah.
So
But
at
feel
this
free to use this one.
yeah, at this point, I think that's what I would be just recognizing here is that this is a something to push towards those topic discussions, and let's see some activity and expansion there, because right now it feels like we're kind of just talking out loud without really a specific action to be discussed.
Yeah, I think that's the next. I mean, just continue the DAO discussion there. Doesn't seem like you said, opt-in like might be implemented for this next one if we're thinking early June. Uh, uh, but let's also remember there's been very little evolution in rarity farming. I think we need to push for. We should be pushing to innovate this. Like, it's not serving our community any purpose at this point. Besides, convincing people who have participated in rarity farming seasons to continue participating and collect a passive reward. If you guys think of early rarity farming seasons 1, 2, especially 1, 2, generated a decent amount of hype on Twitter, and there was marketing push behind it, and community excitement and awareness, and that's turned into now an expectation. And that's all it is now, is an expectation for a reward. So,
well, Coder Dan might have just kind of had his little strike of genius for the morning here. So he's mentioning here that maybe the next, so not this June one, right? But maybe the next rarity farming season happens on the freshly launched Gotchi chain, and maybe you're only eligible with Gotchis who have migrated to that Gotchi chain. It's almost an infrastructure built in, opt-in.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, we're not going to have Gotchi chain live by June. So if the DAO wants to do rarity farming in June, this would be the next, by next rarity farm, I mean next season, I think. But yeah, could be, this would basically be opt-in. But if we're going to do this, we would probably want to mention that in, as someone mentioned above, like the marketing for this season should mention that the next season will take place on Gotchi chain.
I'd agree with that.
yeah, I like what Blow is saying here. Maybe some more discussion is warranted. What I would say is next steps, things that we need to see if we are going to implement opt-in, is like, how do rarity farming funds get handled? Like, are people spending them back into the ecosystem? That would be really good. If they're just market dumping it, then it's like, well, what are we really doing? Why are we doing rarity farming then? What's the purpose of it? So yeah, just my thoughts.
I mean, those are almost two different topics in my mind here, Hefe. There's the specific action of opt-in, and I'm liking this migration to the Gotchi chain being the built-in opt-in. That makes perfect sense. And then I think there's a separate parallel discussion occurring, like rarity farming, distribution, allocation, eligibility. Like that, and then friends like Thrax have mentioned many times at looking at percentage-based allocations opposed to just quantity-based allocations. And there's lots of good ideas about that, but I'm wondering if these are almost two separate topics, specifically about the opt-in. And I'm liking this concept. It seems like we got a lot of good feedback here in the chat about the Gotchi chain being the built-in transition ramp to the new rarity farming eligibility, and that would probably do a really great job of letting friends that are paying attention know about it, and those that are not know about it, and it gives us a good runway for campaigning. Gives Gotchi chain a little bit of extra oomph in its delivery punch to be something more, and gives us a bigger marketing campaign for 2-in-1 kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the DAO is willing to wait a couple more months to do it, it's almost like the perfect timing. And I see Hardcore also mentions here, why not double down and convert it to the Battler? That would be even cooler. Like, we could put out a notice to the community over the next couple months that says the next rarity farming season is going to happen on Gotchi chain. So, and when that migration happens, there'll be a lot of commotion around it. But yeah, I think rarity farming, whether we do a season before Gotchi chain or wait until Gotchi chain, either way, it will be a big boost to Gotchi chain, and will help kind of be a budget for the migration. So if the DAO really wants to do a season right now, I mean, we can. But I think there should definitely also be a consideration of a migration to Gotchi chain.
I like both of that. I think it sounds like that's probably gonna be what happens if I'm just guessing here. I bet that this immediate rarity farming season is gonna roll through as is, just because it tends to be the tradition. And then I think that we do have a nice opportunity to coalesce around a specific pivot to the Gotcha Chain campaign. But we would need the DAO on consensus for that relatively soon, so that way we can let Pixcraft know what the war cry is, and we can all, as a community, start beating that war drum together.
Bearded's point about the delay is, I think that's reasonable. I should say that we are making pretty good progress on the SuperNet, and we don't have any major blockers on the the Polygon side. There is one last kind of unknown that we're currently working through, which is the bridging of Aavegotchis, because they're dynamic NFTs. But that should be something that we solve pretty soon. So it's really just technical implementation at that point. There won't be any more unknowns. So as far it will happen in 2023. I'm very confident of that. Whether it's mid to late Q3 or early Q4 is the real question. I personally think it's going to be end of summer.
Lots of discussion here. So yeah, I mean, seeing a lot of attitude from friends in terms of just whether or not the opt-in makes sense. Some reference to the Axie migration. Awkward went through that Axie migration as well, and they had X amount of time to migrate to the new Ronin chain. And if you missed it, then your Axies disappeared. They lost a lot of Axies as a result of that. I'm wondering if that's being shared as a negative anecdote or as a positive one. This is Hefe on the DAO about whether or not the rarity farming, the way we're spending it, whether it's responsible, whether it's sustainable. There's things to be discussed in that regard. Thrax feels like the rarity farming is supposed to be marketing for us, so for him it makes sense to just wait until we no futuristic to call player rewards for a reason. Bearded's comment you got touched on there by Coder Dan just now. Lots of people did not make that migration to the Ronin chain, and that'd be interesting. You just slow stuff down so you don't die as hardcore here. No futuristic, if we switch to rewarding people in NFTs, we'd see a major dump. People buy gotchis with the idea that they can earn rarity farming. I'd agree with that sentiment. It was interesting to me when I first heard about this project and got explained to what rarity farming was. I thought it was novel. I thought it was unique. It got me engaged in wearables. I still pay attention to it. Not competitive in a strong way, but I think it's something good that we offer within our project. I don't think it's a negative or a bad thing overall. I think we've just got some friends really concerned about the sustainable runway of it and how we allocate to it. Let's see, Choina, he sort of likens this to farms and pools. He's not taken responsibility for his own DeFi farms in the past and just been disengaged when he finally checked in on them and they were closed. New pools open that he wasn't getting rewards on. That was on him. That was his fault for being unaware of what was going on. Phantasma, right? Every season people want to discuss the existential merits of rarity farming. But yeah, ultimately investors stay, return, join the project with reliability of yield as a big consideration. No futuristic there is that is a major sales pitch. But it stopped, for Thrax, it stopped being really beneficial to the DAO wallet. So yeah, these vibes are correct, friends. There's a solution in here that'll improve the project overall. We can't just continuously throw large quantities of capital into rarity farming without any consideration of the sourcing, or at least the replenishment of that fund source. And so that discussion does need to be taken seriously. But in the same breath, you've got lots of friends that have joined this project explicitly with the intention of being able to capitalize on these offered rewards. And so there's got to be a balance in here. It's not one, it's not the other. It's just finding an improvement across both camps.
Yeah.
I think the issue with right now, and this is not the first time we've talked about it, is that the leaderboards they're quite fixed at this point. There's not a lot of upwards mobility without like investing a lot upfront.
What kind of runway do we have if we keep doing, let's say we do rarity farming every 6 months, so we do 2 a year. Does anyone offhand know like what kind of runway that looks like? Is that a couple years or? I mean, I'm looking at Beard.
DAO just got the 7.5 million for protocol rewards that they're currently swapping, and if Ghost keeps going down, they're actually going to be earning more Ghost in terms of rewards. So kind of DCA into Ghost right now as a DAO, which is kind of nice. So when it goes back up in the bull market, that could actually could play well for the DAO. So minimum, I would say 2-3 years.
Okay, well, it's not terrible.
But again, I don't view, and then we've never marketed rarity farming as a fixed yield on assets. It's not what it is. It's a competition for who has the rarest gotchis, and it's a competition. There's no fixed timeline on when it happens.
So is anyone open to
telling invest?
Sorry, go ahead, Coder Dan.
Just, I mean, people telling their friends or various people, oh, it's like if it's a fixed thing that happens every 3 months or every 4 months. Like I said on last week's call, we shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, it's disingenuous.
I see what Phantasma has here. Thank you for providing that. 6 seasons total. So we have 6 more seasons left here before we run out of funds. I think that's how we should be thinking about this. If we have 6 more seasons left, how are we going to make them interesting? Do we want a roadmap for the next 6 seasons of how we're going to evolve this? I think we need to take a bigger picture on rarity farming. I'm not saying we should cut down rewards. I'm just saying we should make them more interesting, and I think there's ways to actually grow our player base through rarity farming, and we're not really doing that effectively. So that's just my yeah, absolutely, FaZe. I think fake gotchis need to be included in rarity farming, but that is kind of controversial. That could be its own thing also.
Hefe, are there other actual expansion topics on the agenda today, or is it this till runway?
No, we were just going to wind up on this one. So if we have people that have more questions around this, I'm okay to wrap it up here. I think we've had a good meeting. We touched on many topics. Please check out the relevant forums if, to follow up on discussions from today. And also 2 records available. I would probably check out No Futures. I was having some audio issues this morning, unfortunately, so my apologies for that. And I see 51 people in the audience here. If any of y'all are interested in coming up and being a speaker for Sunday calls, I'm happy to have you up here and kind of let you test out the role a little bit. So.
By no means, we don't have to wrap up right now. Just make sure I'm kind of mentally budgeting for the timeline here. I'm seeing a lot of good activity and discussion right now in this particular rarity farming. What I'm not seeing is any specific campaign or action being presented in a explicit way that has details and meat to it. So I'm thinking that it looks like a continuing discussion for actual activity in the specific topic threads.
Yeah.
Awkward's already on it.
Loving that activation right there. Yeah, that's all we got.
And actually,
go ahead.
Well, one thing I do want to discuss, and this was kind of discussed earlier in some of our social calls, is I am potentially, as an individual, I'm a little bit concerned about this potential vibe that seems to be developing of a separation between like protocol holders and like protocol users. I'm not loving this discussion between like Gotchiverse assets potentially being separated from what we're considering protocol assets, as though these are 2 separate classes, and that people that spend time in the Gotchiverse are different somehow than the people that are holding Alchemica LP pools. That's all still just one thing here, in my mind at least. And so it's just something to be aware of as we have these discussions.
Yeah, I saw that topic. Maybe that's something for next week. I'm gonna follow that so I can add it here. That was brought up by Immaterial, I think.
Yep, exactly. That's the VP split discussion. Probably, yeah. There's already opinions forming around
There's
all
some
this
hot
stuff, so I
takes
think it'd be a
already.
great topic to. Yeah, there'd be a good opportunity. If you're unfamiliar with that topic, take a look. It's well thought through. It's in depth. There's a lot of information presented. So it's worth reading and just getting y'all's take on that. And we can specifically look at that next Sunday. I know that ArtCore has been lobbying really hard to try to get some stage presence to present his updates on the Botanica project. They've been working really hard on that. So that's on the agenda for next Sunday as well.
Yeah, well said. First, Mikel, thank you for joining me on this Sunday call here today. You killed it. I'm glad we have other hosts available to come up here and be more involved. This is a kind of a transition working towards opening things up through ThriveCoin. I've talked to their team. They're excited about this, and this is something we'll be hopefully going full force with probably after this first 3 months is done, but I'm hoping we can try and get some automated rewards worked out in the process in the meantime. But yeah, thank you for coming up here, hanging out with me today, and again, open invitation to anybody in here. Y'all are, I've heard a few of you speak, and I'm confident you could be up here as well. So if we don't see you next week, watch the recordings on the Aavegotchi DAO channel today as well. I got
we'll make an effort to get we'll make that effort to get the Anchor Spotify up as well and get those audio tracks continue to be published as well. Yeah, no dips for the DAO, friends. We're just continuously improving.
Absolutely. Coder Dan, any last words?
No. Yeah, it's been a good week. Good meeting friends. Great job, everyone, handling the kind of the chaos thrown in our backyard with this OVX situation. But I think the guy Aavegotchi DAO has handled it very professionally, very well. So yeah, great job hosting, Michaelium.
Thank y'all very much. It's we're all better together. God forbid, Hefe has got to be able to take a breath and smoke on a call at least once, right?
Yeah, or just take a break in general. So, I mean, yeah, I appreciate that. Adding another one to our ranks here. So,
I'm looking forward to the next host. Let's see who else we want to get up here. You're not alone, friends. We're here to all y'all better.
absolutely. All right, friends.
Well, let's call it.
Great.
Y'all
All right.
have a good Sunday.
Have a
Happy
great
Mother's
Sunday.
Day. Call your moms.
Yep, already did.